Just getting set up here. Hold on a second. My 3 children are all young adults now. My youngest, Katya, is heading off to college this year. I enjoy immensely relating to them as mature, independent people who have interests unfamiliar to me, who endure struggles that I hear about after the fact. I really appreciate this new chapter of being in relationship with my children. And yet I miss their younger years for a lot of reasons, not the least of which was the absolute comfort I used to have with spying on them. When my children reached the age where they wanted a little privacy and to close their doors, I relied on tidying up their rooms to see what I might find. I once found a note that started off, "Dear God, I would really prefer to move to Queens and live with my babysitter, Sita. She's much nicer to me than my mom." My life as a spy reached an all-time high during the pandemic when we were sheltering in place. There they all were, at home. I could overhear almost everything. It was so distracting. All of a sudden, there they were, and I could hear from wherever they were in the house, in the apartment. I could hear the teachers, I could hear the breakout rooms, I could hear the conversations with friends, the coaching sessions. I mean, this was a feast. I followed the dreamy collaboration of Katya while she was in middle school with a dear friend while they kept a daily journal of their activities. They filled it with drawings and data from the news about COVID. They also filled it with their daily schedules, including things like Xbox Dance Revolution competitions. They discussed how one day they would take these journals and show it to their grandchildren so they would understand this historic time of the COVID pandemic. What an image of my 13-year-old as a grandma scrolling through her doodles with descendants whom I'll never know. One of my children got into a little bit of trouble for liking an Instagram post that was controversial. He had to meet with a school administrator at an appointed time on Zoom. I showed up right on time, off camera, and listened to their conversation. It deepened my empathy for the weight that our children carry as they develop their own minds and form relationships in the context of social media. And during normal times when my children were out and about, I could track them on their phones as if my curiosity about their whereabouts could somehow keep them safe. Elizabeth Stone wrote, "Making the decision to have a child, it is momentous. It is to decide forever that you can have your own heart go walking around in another body." I could watch my phone to see my ambulatory hearts moving all over New York City. I almost never did because you can't really rely on spying to keep them safe. I still want to know every nook and cranny of my children's lives. I want to know their struggles. I want to know their wisdom. I want to know their mistakes and their motivation. Lucky for me, my parents' curiosity was insatiable about me as well. My mom would still be happy to listen to me download for hours about every detail of my life. She's never bored, no matter how mundane. And I'm pretty sure I come by my spying habits honestly. No doubt she read my elementary school diaries, despite the ersatz locking system with the tiny key I hid in my desk. My dad must have asked me 1,000 times, "Penny, for your thoughts." He always asked so sweetly. I only came to understand when I became a mother just how loving a question that was. I'm lucky I have doting, generous parents, but so many of us do not share that blessing. American writer Anne Lamott is not a fan of a narrow view of Mother's Day for this reason. She writes, "My main gripe with Mother's Day is that it feels incomplete and imprecise. The main thing that ever helped mothers was other people mothering them, including aunties and brothers. A chain of mothering that keeps the whole shebang afloat. I don't want flowers and chocolate on Mother's Day if you're not going to give them to all the people who help mother children." One of the people in my own chain of mothering is a woman I only had contact with for 8 months about 15 years ago. Trudy Hirsch was my supervisor when I was a chaplaincy intern at St. Luke's Hospital. She took a deep interest in the well-being of our little crew of 5 chaplain interns. She asked questions that were magically incisive. She listened with such concentration and tenderness that I can still feel what it's like to be in Trudy's presence. One late afternoon, all of us interns and Trudy were jamming into a little elevator after a day-long intensive training us in chaplaincy, and one of us said, "We should call you Mother Trudy." We knew that Trudy did not have children of her own, and she immediately and firmly responded, "Oh no, I am not your mother, and you do not want me to be, trust me." After my internship was over, I never saw Trudy again. She moved on, but she made her mark on me. She set an example for me as a minister and as a person. Whether she likes it or not, I consider her a mother figure. Trudy was what David Brooks would call an illuminator in his book, How to Know a Person. Pastor Jimmy from this morning's reading is also an illuminator. Not all of us are the types who would approach Mrs. Dorsey, "Mrs. Dorsey, you're the best, I love you." There are many ways to create a feeling of hospitality when you're with someone else. Brooks defines illuminators as offering a gaze that says, "I want to know you, and I want to be known by you." A gaze that positively answers that question that we all unconsciously ask ourselves when we meet someone. Am I a person to you? Do you care about me? Am I a priority? It's a gaze that radiates respect, a gaze that says, every person I meet is unique, unrepeatable, and in some way superior to me. My children taught me the practice of illuminationism. As they grew up, I saw how mothering them had transformed the lens through which I could interact with all people. They were my first subjects, and kind of on the easy side because I feel fully responsible for them. As my spiritual life deepened, I felt I needed to somehow even out my love for my children with my love for others. I thought maybe because I have so much love for them, I could lower it a notch and free myself up a little for more love to other people. I asked a spiritual teacher how to work on this, and her answer was a life-changing epiphany for me. She suggested I increase my love for all people to match the love I have for my children. I continued to be extremely curious about my children while knowing that their independence is as crucial to their well-being as my dependable love. I'll always want to talk with them about the big questions. What decisions are you thinking over? Who do you most admire right now? And because our answers to the big questions are always changing, I'll keep asking. I want to know their answers. I want to know your answers. My children have taught me how to know a person and how to aspire to be an illuminator. And you'll be relieved to know that I've learned it's not really necessary to spy.
I cannot count the number of weddings I've done where this text, the one that you heard from 1 Corinthians 13, was chosen. And even for notoriously secular Unitarian Universalist weddings, there is something about this passage that couples, well, they just love. And of course, Paul, who wrote these words that you heard, was not intending them to be about the love between two people. He was writing about the kind of love and commitment it takes to build a community, because he was writing to this fractious and diverse and often divided community at Corinth. But as many times as I've heard that passage, it's not the descriptions about love that intrigued me the most. It was this one. When I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child. When I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. For now we see through a mirror darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know, even as also I am known. So those three sentences, I think, contain the entire arc of our human life, and the pulse and the impulse that is with us since we were born. The desire to be truly, completely, and utterly known by another human being. So when Pamela and I were in conversation about this Sunday's service, she was inspired by the recent book written by David Brooks, How to Know a Person. And so we had conversations about some of the themes in that book. And in it, he describes his reason for writing it. He asked people to tell him about times when they felt really seen, truly seen. And he says they talk about a time when someone perceived some talent in them that they themselves weren't even able to see. They talk about a time when somebody understood exactly what they needed at some exhausted moment and stepped in just the right way to lighten the load. But then this is where Brooks also cites a spiritual reason for writing this book. He says, no one can fully appreciate their own beauty and strengths unless they are mirrored back to them in the mind of another. There is something about being seen that brings forth growth. I just want to add parenthetically that although we're using the words see and sight to refer to eyesight, those who are blind have other ways of seeing that are equally as important and significant. But for both Paul and David Brooks, the beginning of wisdom is first knowing oneself, to wipe that mirror clean so that it more accurately reflects the true self, and to know others in all our beauty and our broken places. So the question that was arising through our conversations is, who knows you? I mean, who really knows you? Is it or was it your spouse or your partner or your closest, dearest friend? For those who are in long-time relationships, there's a great comfort in being known. We can see that certain look at our partner's faces. We've seen it 100 times before. We assume we know what they're thinking. Maybe we can finish their sentences because they said the same thing, right, in the same way hundreds of times before. And while this is a blessing, this knowing and being known can also have its limitations, because as human beings, we can only see in part. We can only fully comprehend the mystery of another. We cannot fully comprehend the mystery of another, or even make room for the inevitable changes that will come. In our faith tradition as Unitarian Universalists, we often recite the axiom, revelation is not sealed. And by that, our Unitarian and Universalist ancestors meant that while the books of the Bible were closed many centuries ago, there are always new insights to be revealed, that if we mine it deeply enough, we can find these veins of precious insights into human nature, as well as our relationship with the greatest mystery of all, this presence that some of us know as God, the spirit of life itself. So the desire to know others is born from a deeper desire to be truly, fully, utterly known and loved, not only as a child of human parents, but as a child of the universe itself, as a child of God. So Brooks' book is an exploration of that longing, and he describes a moment when looking up from his book in the late afternoon to see his wife in a doorway, and her gaze was resting on a white orchid. And it's a moment that I've seen depicted in hundreds of paintings. It's an unguarded moment of repose. And Brooks describes this moment when he says to himself, I know her, I really know her through and through. It's a moment that he describes of as beholding. When you are beholding someone, you see the richness of this particular human consciousness, the full sympathy of how they perceive and create life. It was a delicious moment, he said, warm and intimate. Now, I feel fortunate in that I had a really good mom, or as she would say, a good enough mother. Good enough mother. And in fact, I'm honoring her today because she created this stole for my ordination. We designed it together, and she did the handiwork. It's a precious thing for me. My mom wanted children. She was always there for us, but it wasn't until after she died that I realized how much of her I did not know, because I could only see her as through the lens of being her daughter, not as a friend, not as a colleague. And for as intimate as that mother-daughter relationship is and can be, there was a part that perhaps I never would see, never would really understand. When I found her journals after she died, I was shocked to realize that she didn't write about me in them at all. It's all about me, Mom. I mean, there were whole landscapes of her life, her thoughts, her hopes, her dreams that had nothing to do with her children, and everything to do with the life that she wanted to lead once her children were grown. Instead, it was a dialogue between her and her God, the God who knew her and loved her, and the love that sustained her when her children grew up, made their own lives, at which she was no longer the center of all their decisions and their wants and their needs. The reflection turned inward, towards the purposeful paradox that lingers at the heart of all of our longing. We are afraid to be fully known, for to do so would reveal our secrets, our flaws, our failings. And we want to be fully known. For it is only then that we can accept those same secrets and flaws and failings. Only then we can come to see ourselves through a mirror, not darkly, but plainly, as a perfectly imperfect creation. You know, I've never had children of my own, but I've been fortunate to have a stepdaughter in my life whom I adore and respect, and two grand twins, age 5. And until I had grandchildren, I had no idea. Okay, true confessions, how much work parenting really is. It is so constant, so demanding, and sandwiched in between moments of sheer delight and exhilaration are times of frustration, anger, exhaustion, boredom. So the mother lode, which is referred to in today's sermon, refers to two aspects of parenting, and particularly motherhood. One references a mining term. The mother lode is a vein of gold or silver found in great abundance, but as a resource, it is not inexhaustible. You can mine that vein until it's completely tapped out. And here's where the second meaning of the title serves as a challenge to all of us, whether as grandparents or parents, seniors, youth, young adults. We can be on the alert for ways to support those who are actively parenting. We can take the load off of them for even a little while through an offer of babysitting or volunteering for religious education at church, or offering a parents' night out at the church where we watch your kids and the parents get to go out and be adults for a while. There are many possibilities for us to, well, take a load off and put the load on us for even a little while. And